你那个都拿得动这个进去就可以。
那么多人没不知道。刚才我没查那个网上我看了的，忘
等一下嘛，
了
等一下。
多高啊？等一下再等，等他再。
Before I discovered RVing, I spent a ton of time doing road trips ever since I was in college. Here's a look at a trip that I went on in 2014 from Minnesota all the way out to Portland, Oregon, and then back around within a span of around 10 days. I tried to hit up as many national parks as I could. There were like short 1 day to 2 day stays. But really just wanting to get out and seeing what's all out here, because at that point it was my first year living in Minnesota. So I usually rent a car for this, and this time I rented a Nissan Altima, and this will be my vehicle for the next 10 days. So the first day was very much a driving day. So we started out in Minneapolis, went through Fargo, I made a pit stop in Bismarck for some food, and then stayed overnight in Dickinson, North Dakota. And then the second day was also very much a driving day, but we did make some pit stops. The first was Theodore Roosevelt National Park. It was just a quick stop for some sightseeing, and as part of it, we actually saw a rogue bison, and people were taking photos and videos. Wasn't really sure if they were going to charge, so I took a quick photo and got out of there. My next stop was Little Bighorn National Monument, which, if you are history buffs, you'll know that this is where Custer's last stand took place against the Cheyenne warriors. What's interesting about the cemetery here is that everyone and all the gravestones were buried in the location where they actually fell or died. And so that was really interesting. There's a lot of tributes to the Indian warriors there that were part of it. I also had a chance to take in a quick short hike, but then after that it was gangway all the way through Montana and into Kalispell. In Kalispell, I got some much needed rest, as I will be heading up Glacier National Park the next day. The next day was a day in Glacier National Park, and unfortunately it was kind of gloomy in the morning, and it was also May, and up there, despite the fact that it was May, with the elevation, there was still a lot of snow around. So you'll see on the sign, Logan Pass was closed, which is the going to the Sun Road. That was the main feature that everyone would have gone for. So didn't get to see that, but still got to take in some roadside hikes throughout the day. You'll see in the videos that it was rather cloudy and gloomy to start, but once the weather cleared up, and there was definitely great sights to be seen from a nature standpoint. So since the Going to the Sun Road wasn't open and Logan Pass wasn't open, I cut my Glacier Park visit short and went to the National Bison Range in the afternoon. It was a driving tour, and you could see bison just laying around in their natural habitat. And then after that, it was just along the drive, so you could see all the scenery and really get acquainted with Montana's big sky environment. Unfortunately, we only have 1 day to spend at the Glacier National Park area, and then I had to hightail it over to Portland, which I was excited about. On the way, we stopped by Spokane, Washington. I had a pit stop there and just decided to grab lunch. I decided to drive around Spokane, Washington for a little bit and even got to see Gonzaga University before I made the rest of my way out to Portland. Day 5 was action-packed, and it started with heading out to the Columbia River Gorge and a couple of the sights and sounds there in terms of the Vista House and some of the waterfalls that are in the area. After that, it was all about Mount Hood, and you'll see in the video that it was started out to be sunny, and I'm looking right at the mountain itself, where the weather and the clouds shifted so rapidly that by the time I had gotten up to Trillium Lake, which you'll see in a bit, the peak of the mountain was covered in clouds, and this was a prime photo opportunity that unfortunately I missed. After my failed photo op, I retired to downtown Portland, and I'll tell you, nothing picks you up than looking at food trucks, getting some good food, and I just took a stroll through downtown and checked out the city itself. So clearly one day is not enough to explore the Portland area, but it was time to head over to Bend the next day. On our way to Bend, I decided to head up to Crater Lake first. Just like Glacier National Park, as we headed up the mountain and closer to the lake, you can see on the video here that there was still snow on the ground even though we're in late May. In fact, a wall of snow. Once you get up to Crater Lake, however, the views are phenomenal. And unfortunately, because of the snow, there's actually a trail where you can actually hike down toward the lake, but because of the snow, obviously those trails weren't open. If you have to come probably in the middle of the summer to really be able to get that experience. So after Crater Lake, I stopped back at Bend, actually found a Hawaiian place for dinner, and then prep for the next leg of the trip, which is making our way from Bend over to Boise, Idaho on a short driving day. Before I left Bend in the morning, I went and got some breakfast, and then I did a little hike up a place called Violet Butte in the city. It's a little bluff, and you just kind of hike up, and on top it has a little compass thing where it points out all the mountain ranges that are in the surrounding area. From there, once we got to Boise, I just did a quick drive by Boise State and Bronco Stadium, which is known for the iconic new turf that they have. So after a night in Boise, the next day we headed over to Jackson, or Jackson Hole. Either way, we were going to Grand Tetons National Park. And unlike Glacier, we had some really good weather over at Grand Tetons. I really only had a day in Jackson though, so I spent part of it in Grand Tetons and then the other part walking around downtown Jackson. For dinner, I decided to splurge at Gun Barrel with some wild game and steak. But then as I was eating, I couldn't help but feel that something was keeping its eye on me. The next day, it was time to start heading east back to Minnesota. However, before that, I spent a morning over at Yellowstone National Park. There wasn't a lot of time, but at the very least, I wanted to see some of what's there, but then specifically really wanted to go see Old Faithful. Unfortunately, by the time I got to Old Faithful, my batteries were dying, so this is all I got, and I'll just have to come back in the future and really spend some time at Yellowstone. I decided to stop by Mount Rushmore on my way home from South Dakota. And unfortunately it was a cloudy day, but I thought, hey, if anyone could take a sunny photo, why don't I take one of Mount Rushmore completely buried in fog? From there, it was an 8-hour drive home, and for the trip I put on about 5,000 miles to the car, and it was pretty hectic. I think as I'm getting older, I definitely don't want my trips to be so full driving, but then spending more time in certain places, and an RV is definitely going to help us do that moving forward.